What, you thought I'll never find out the truth? Cheating witch.
The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor of the Beacon Grill, sending crystal fragments across my polished shoes like tiny daggers. Julia's laugh echoed through the restaurant's dining room, sharp and cutting as the broken glass at my feet. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she giggled, not looking sorry at all. "I'm just so nervous about tonight. Can you believe it? I'm finally a lawyer." The waiter rushed over with a towel, shooting me a sympathetic look as he cleaned up the mess. I forced a smile and ordered another round for our table of 12. Julia's parents, her law school friends, and a few professors sat around the massive oak table, all celebrating her graduation from Boston University Law School. My name is Sam Callahan, and I'm 38 years old. For the past 3 years, I've worked in IT support, while my wife Julia pursued her law degree. I'm the guy who kept our household running, paid the bills, and listened to her complain about contracts and torts every single night. Tonight was supposed to be my celebration, too. "Ladies and gentlemen," Julia's father, William Ashford III, stood up with his wine glass raised. His silver hair caught the chandelier light as he surveyed the table with those cold blue eyes that had looked down on me since the day I met his daughter. "I'd like to propose a toast to my brilliant daughter, Julia." Everyone raised their glasses. I lifted mine, watching the bubbles rise to the surface like my hopes for this evening. "Julia has accomplished something truly remarkable," William continued, his Boston Brahmin accent dripping with superiority. "Despite the challenges of being married during law school, she's graduated summa cum laude. She's already received a job offer from Whitmore, Stenner & Associates, one of the most prestigious firms in the city." My stomach dropped. This was news to me. Julia hadn't mentioned any job offer. Now I know some people thought it was unwise for Julia to get married so young, especially to someone without a college degree. William's eyes found mine across the table. But sometimes we learn the most from our mistakes. The table went quiet. Julia's mother, Patricia, covered her mouth to hide what I was sure was a smirk. Her law school friends, Tasha, Priya, and Ben, suddenly became very interested in their salads. "Dad," Julia said, but she was still smiling. "I'm just saying, darling, that now you'll have the means to make better choices. Independence is everything for a woman in today's world." I felt the heat rising in my chest, that familiar burn of humiliation I'd grown to know so well over the past 3 years. But I kept my mouth shut. I'd learned that fighting back in public only made things worse. "Actually," Julia said, standing up with her own glass, "I have something to say, too." Oh, no. "I want to thank everyone who supported me through law school, my parents who never stopped believing in me, my professors, especially Professor Stenner, who pushed me to excel." She smiled at a distinguished man in his 40s, sitting near the end of the table. Mark Stenner, I realized, her constitutional law professor and apparently her future boss. And of course, my husband Sam. She turned to me with that practiced smile she used when she was about to twist the knife. Meet my husband, everyone. No degree, no real career plans, just living off my income and waiting for me to support him. The table erupted in nervous laughter. Tasha actually snorted wine through her nose. Ben covered his face with his napkin, his shoulders shaking. Even the waiter, who was refilling water glasses nearby, paused to stare. "Julia," I said quietly. "What?" "I'm just being honest. You've been so supportive, honey. So patient. Most men would be threatened by having a wife who's more educated and successful, but not you. You're just happy to coast along." More laughter. Professor Stenner was watching me with obvious amusement, like I was some kind of zoo animal performing tricks. "You know what the best part is?" Julia continued, really warming up now. "Sam thinks he's going to benefit from all my hard work, like we're some kind of team or something. But I've got news for you, sweetheart. The days of me carrying dead weight are over." The entire restaurant had gone quiet now. Other diners were turning in their seats to watch the show. The humiliation was complete and total. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Every eye in the place was on me. Julia was still smiling, waiting for me to slink away like a knocking dog. Instead, I picked up my champagne flute and raised it high. "You know what, Julia? You're absolutely right. This is definitely going to be a night to remember." I looked around the table, making eye contact with each person who had laughed at me. "I want everyone here to remember this moment. Remember what you heard tonight. Remember who said what." Julia's smile faltered slightly. "Because this is the last joke you'll ever make at my expense." I drained my champagne in one gulp and set the glass down gently on the table. Enjoy the celebration, everyone. You've earned it. I walked out of the Beacon Grill with my head high and my back straight. Behind me, I could hear the buzz of confused conversation starting up again. Let them talk. Let them wonder what the hell I meant by that. They'd find out soon enough. The rain was coming down hard as I walked through downtown Boston, soaking through my suit jacket. I didn't care. I had thinking to do, and the cold water felt good against my burning face. 3 years. 3 goddamn years I'd supported that woman. I'd worked double shifts to pay her tuition. I'd cooked dinner every night while she studied. I'd listened to her practice closing arguments until 2 in the morning. I'd been her cheerleader, her therapist, her personal ATM machine, and this was how she repaid me. My phone buzzed with a text from Julia. "Where did you go? You're embarrassing me." I almost laughed. I was embarrassing her? Another text. "Stop being dramatic and come back. We need to talk about the tuition payment." That stopped me cold. I stood in the middle of Tremont Street, rain dripping off my nose, and stared at that message. The tuition payment. See, here's something Julia's fancy law school friends didn't know. Her parents had cut her off financially after her second year, claiming they wanted her to learn responsibility. Since then, I'd been paying her tuition out of my own pocket. Every semester, I'd scrape together $15,000 to keep her in school. The final payment, the one that would actually release her diploma and make her a real lawyer, was due next week. $15,000 that I had sitting in our joint savings account, waiting to be transferred to Boston University. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. With a few quick taps, I transferred the money from our joint account into my personal account. Then I blocked Julia's access to all our shared credit cards and canceled her debit card. If she wanted independence so badly, she could have it. My phone started ringing immediately. Julia's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message. "Sam, what the hell is wrong with you? Everyone's asking where you went. You're making me look bad in front of my professors and my parents. Just get back here and act like an adult for once in your life." I deleted the message and turned off my phone. The rain was still coming down as I walked back to my apartment in Southie. It was a far cry from Julia's fancy condo in Back Bay, the one her parents had bought her as a graduation gift. But it was mine. I'd kept it throughout our marriage as a backup plan, though I'd never thought I'd actually need it. Turns out I was smarter than I'd given myself credit for. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat down at my computer. Time to do what I did best. Dig into the details. Julia thought I was just some dumb IT guy who fixed printers and reset passwords. She had no idea what I was actually capable of. 8 years in the Army as a signals intelligence analyst had taught me a few things about gathering information. My current job at a cybersecurity firm had taught me a few more. I started with Julia's email account. We'd shared passwords for everything during our marriage. For transparency, she'd said. Funny how that transparency only went one way. It took me about 10 minutes to find what I was looking for. Email after email between Julia and Professor Mark Stenner dating back 8 months. At first, they were about coursework and career advice, but by the 3rd month, the tone had changed dramatically. "I can't stop thinking about yesterday afternoon in your office. My husband doesn't understand me the way you do. I've never felt this way about anyone before." I kept reading, my anger growing colder and more focused with each message. They'd been planning this for months. The job offer at his firm, the apartment in Back Bay, even tonight's humiliation. It was all part of their plan to get me out of the picture. The final email, sent just this morning, made everything clear. "Tonight's the night, Mark. After dinner, I'm going to make it clear to Sam that our marriage is over. My parents are already on board. They never liked him anyway. By next week, I'll be officially divorced, and we can be together openly. I can't wait to start our new life together." I leaned back in my chair and finished my bourbon. So that was their game. Julia was going to humiliate me in public, then serve me with divorce papers and walk away with her law degree, her new job, and her professor boyfriend. There was just one problem with their plan. I picked up my phone and called Boston University's billing department. "Hi, this is Sam Callahan. I need to cancel a tuition payment that's scheduled for next week. My wife, Julia Callahan's final semester payment." "I'm sorry, sir, but according to our records, you're not authorized to make changes to Mrs. Callahan's account." "Actually, I am. I'm the one who's been making all the payments for the past 2 years. Check your records. Every payment has come from my personal bank account." There was a pause while the clerk looked it up. "You're right, Mr. Callahan. I see that you've been the source of payment since fall 2022. What would you like to do? Cancel the automatic payment and put a note on the account that any future payments need to be pre-approved by me personally. Done. Is there anything else I can help you with? Actually, yes. What happens if the final tuition payment isn't received by the deadline? The student's diploma is held until the balance is paid in full. They can't practice law without the diploma, so most students are very careful about making that final payment. Good to know. Thanks for your help. I hung up and poured another bourbon. Julia wanted to play games. Fine. I'd show her what a real game looked like. My phone had been buzzing nonstop for the past hour. 17 missed calls from Julia, 12 from her mother, and even 3 from Professor Stenner himself. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and got to work. The pounding on my door started at 7 in the morning. I'd been up all night, but I wasn't tired. I was running on pure adrenaline and righteous anger. Sam, open this door right now. Julia's voice was shrill with panic. We need to talk. I took my time getting dressed, brushing my teeth, and making coffee. Let her wait. Let her pound. The neighbors in my building had heard her screaming at me before. They knew what kind of person she really was. When I finally opened the door, Julia looked like hell. Her perfect blonde hair was a mess, her makeup was smudged, and she was still wearing her dress from last night. Professor Stenner was standing behind her, looking uncomfortable in his rumpled tuxedo. What the hell is wrong with you? She screamed, pushing past me into my apartment. Do you have any idea what you've done? Good morning to you too, honey, Professor Stenner. I nodded politely at her boyfriend. Coffee? Don't you dare act casual with me. Julia spun around, her face red with fury. The university called this morning. They said my tuition payment was canceled. My diploma is being held until the balance is paid. That's unfortunate, I said, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Have you tried calling your parents? I'm sure they'd be happy to help their brilliant daughter. You know they already spent their budget on my apartment and car. The $15,000 was supposed to come from you. Was it? I don't remember agreeing to that. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. In fact, I don't remember agreeing to pay for any of your law school. Funny how these things work out. Professor Stenner cleared his throat. Sam, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Julia tells me you two are having some marital difficulties, but surely you don't want to sabotage her career over a personal dispute. I looked up at him with genuine curiosity. I'm sorry. Who are you again? I don't believe we've been properly introduced. His face went red. I'm Mark Stenner. I was Julia's professor, and now I'm her supervisor at the law firm. Ah, yes, her supervisor. How long have you two been working together? Julia and Mark exchanged a quick glance. Amateur mistake. Since she started her internship last semester, Mark said carefully. Interesting. And when did you offer her the job at your firm? Another glance. Just recently. I turned my laptop around so they could see the screen. It was displaying Julia's email inbox, with about 50 messages from Mark clearly visible. According to these emails, you offered her the job back in January. You've also been having an affair with my wife for 8 months. I scrolled down to show them the more explicit messages. Would you like me to read some of these out loud? They're quite detailed. Julia went white. How did you get into my email? You gave me the password, remember? For transparency. I closed the laptop. Now let's talk about what's going to happen next. You can't blackmail us, Mark said, but his voice was shaky. Blackmail? Who said anything about blackmail? I'm just exercising my right to control my own finances. See, I've been thinking about this all night, and I've realized something important. I don't owe either of you anything. I stood up and walked over to Julia. She backed away from me like I was going to punch her, as if I'd ever laid a hand on her in anger. For 3 years, I supported you. I worked overtime to pay your tuition. I cooked your meals and cleaned your apartment and listened to you complain about your professors. I glanced at Mark. Well, most of your professors. Sam, please, Julia said, and for the first time, she sounded scared instead of angry. I know I said some things last night that I shouldn't have. I was just nervous and excited, and I had too much to drink. You said I was dead weight. You said the days of you carrying me were over. You said I had no education and no career plans. I counted off each insult on my fingers. You said all of this in front of your parents, your friends, and your professors. You made me a laughingstock. I'll apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone I was wrong. Will you? Will you call your father and tell him you were wrong about me? Will you post on social media that you're sorry for humiliating your husband in public? She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I didn't think so. I walked over to the door and opened it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my apartment. You're going to figure out how to pay for your own diploma. And you're going to do it without any help from me. This is insane, Mark said. You're destroying her future over hurt feelings. Her future? What about my future? What about the 3 years I spent investing in our marriage while she was planning to leave me for you? I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of Julia's email. Quote, I can't wait to start our new life together, end quote, sent yesterday morning. Mark's face went pale. He hadn't realized I had evidence of their relationship. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you, and don't come back. Sam, wait, Julia said, tears starting to flow. We can work this out. I love you. No, you don't. You love what I provided for you. There's a difference. After they left, I sat back down at my computer and got to work. If Julia thought last night was humiliating, she had no idea what was coming. I started with her social media accounts. Julia was obsessed with her image, constantly posting about her law school achievements and her perfect life. She had over 2,000 followers on Instagram, mostly other law students and young professionals in Boston. I couldn't access her accounts directly, but I didn't need to. I had something better. Screenshots of her emails with Mark, complete with timestamps and metadata. I created a new email account and started sending anonymous messages to some of Julia's closest friends and classmates. Nothing too obvious, just enough information to get them asking questions. Did you know Julia's been having an affair with Professor Stenner? I have proof if you're interested. Within an hour, my phone was buzzing with activity. Julia's friend Tasha called me directly. Sam, I just got the weirdest email. Someone's saying Julia's been cheating on you with Professor Stenner. That's crazy, right? Is it? I asked. There was a long pause. Sam, what's going on? Why don't you ask Julia? I'm sure she'll tell you the truth. I hung up and waited. It didn't take long. Julia called me 20 minutes later, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. What did you tell Tasha? She's asking all kinds of questions about Mark and me. I didn't tell her anything, but apparently someone else did. This is maltreatment. I could have you arrested. For what? Telling the truth? Good luck with that, counselor. Oh wait, you're not actually a counselor yet, are you? You still need that diploma. I hung up on her and went back to work. By the end of the day, Julia's entire social circle was buzzing with rumors about her affair. Her Instagram posts were getting comments like, "Is it true about you and Professor Stenner?" And "Your husband deserves better." But I was just getting started. I called Boston University's ethics department and filed a formal complaint against Professor Stenner for having an inappropriate relationship with a student. I included printed copies of their email correspondence as evidence. Then I called the Massachusetts Bar Association and reported that Julia had been involved in an unethical relationship that might affect her fitness to practice law. Finally, I called Whitmore, Stenner & Associates and asked to speak with the managing partner. This is David Whitmore. How can I help you? Mr. Whitmore, my name is Sam Callahan. I'm calling about Julia Callahan, who I believe has received a job offer from your firm. Yes, Mark Stenner recommended her highly. She starts next month. I thought you should know that Miss Callahan and Mr. Stenner have been having an extramarital affair for the past 8 months. I have documented evidence if you'd like to see it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I see. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Mr. Callahan. We'll look into the matter. I'm sure you will. Have a good day. I hung up and poured myself another bourbon. It was only 3 in the afternoon, but I felt like celebrating. My phone rang again. This time it was Mark Stenner, and he sounded desperate. Sam, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Has it? I'm just getting started. Look, I know you're angry, but you're destroying innocent people here. Julia's career, my reputation, my marriage. Your marriage? I laughed. That's rich. You're worried about your marriage while you're screwing mine up? My wife doesn't deserve this. She's done nothing wrong. Neither did I, but that didn't stop you from planning to steal my wife. It wasn't like that. Julia and I, we fell in love. These things happen. You're right, these things do happen, and so do consequences. I hung up on him too. That evening, I got a call from my friend Mike, who bartended at a dive bar in Southie. We'd served in the Army together, and he was one of the few people who knew the real story of my marriage. Holy crap, Sam, I just saw Julia on the news. What? Channel 5. They're doing a story about ethics violations at Boston University Law School. They mentioned her by name. I turned on the TV, and sure enough, there was Julia's law school photo on the screen while a reporter talked about allegations of inappropriate relationships between faculty and students. My phone started ringing immediately. Julia, her parents, Mark, even some of her law school friends. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and started planning phase 2 of my revenge. If Julia wanted to play hardball, I'd show her what a real game looked like. 3 days after the news story broke, Julia's world was falling apart. Her job offer had been postponed pending investigation. Professor Stenner had been placed on administrative leave, and Julia still didn't have her diploma because she couldn't come up with the $15,000. I knew all of this because her friend Priya had called me. Unlike Tasha and Ben, who had immediately distanced themselves from the scandal, Priya seemed genuinely concerned about Julia. "Sam, I know things are bad between you two, but she's really struggling. She's been crying for 3 days straight." "That's unfortunate," I said, not feeling particularly sympathetic. "Look, I know she treated you badly at that dinner. We all saw it, and it was wrong. But don't you think this is enough? You've made your point." "Have I?" Because last I checked, she was still planning to divorce me and run off with her professor boyfriend. She's not anymore. She broke up with Mark yesterday. His wife found out about the affair, and she's filing for divorce. He's probably going to lose his job. Good. Sam, please, just talk to her. She wants to apologize. She had 3 years to treat me with respect. She chose not to. Now she gets to live with the consequences. But Priya's call had given me an idea. If Julia was really desperate, she might be willing to do something stupid. And if she did something stupid, I could document it. I set up a security camera outside my apartment door and waited. I didn't have to wait long. At 2 in the morning, I heard someone fumbling with my lock. I watched on my phone as Julia tried to pick the lock with a bobby pin, then gave up and started trying to force the door with a credit card. I let her work at it for about 10 minutes, getting everything on video before I opened the door from the inside. "Looking for something?" Julia jumped back, startled. She was wearing all black, like some kind of cat burglar, which would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. "Sam, I wanted to talk to you." At 2 in the morning, by breaking into my apartment? I wasn't breaking in, The door was unlocked. I held up my phone, showing her the video I'd just recorded. "Want to try that again?" Her face crumpled. "Please, Sam, I need those financial documents. The bank won't give me a loan without proof of income, and all our tax returns are in your name. So, ask me for them." "I did. You won't return my calls." "That's because I have nothing to say to you." She pushed past me into the apartment, and I let her. This was going to be good. "Where are the files?" she demanded, heading for my desk. "Julia, you need to leave. Now." "Not without those documents." She started pulling open drawers, scattering papers everywhere. "I have a right to our financial records." "Actually, you don't. We're not divorced yet, but we're legally separated, and this is my apartment, not ours." She ignored me and kept searching, getting more frantic by the minute. "I know you have them here somewhere. The tax returns, the bank statements, the investment accounts." "What investment accounts?" She froze. "Nothing. I just meant our savings." But I'd caught the slip. Julia thought I had money hidden somewhere. She thought this was all about money. "Julia, look at me." She turned around, her hair a mess, her eyes wild with desperation. "This isn't about money. This is about respect. This is about 3 years of marriage where you treated me like I was beneath you. This is about you humiliating me in front of a room full of people because you thought I was too weak to fight back." "I'm sorry. I told you I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry your plan didn't work. But you're not sorry for what you did to me." She started crying then, big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Please, Sam, I'll do anything. I'll make it up to you. Just help me get my diploma." "Anything?" She nodded eagerly. "Call your father right now. Tell him you were wrong about me. Tell him I was a good husband and you threw it all away for an affair with your professor." Her face went white. "I can't do that." "Why not?" "He'll cut me off completely. He's already furious about the scandal. So you'll apologize to me in private, but you won't defend me to your family. You'll beg me for money, but you won't admit you were wrong about me. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." I walked over to the door and opened it. "Get out, Julia, and don't come back. Next time you try to break in here, I'm calling the police." She left, but not before grabbing a handful of papers from my desk. I let her take them, They were just old utility bills and junk mail, but the fact that she'd stolen from me was now on video. The next morning, I called my lawyer and filed a restraining order. By noon, Julia had been served with papers ordering her to stay at least 500 feet away from me and my apartment. That afternoon, I got a call from Mark Stenner. "We need to meet," he said. "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. There are things you don't understand about this situation." "Enlighten me." "Not over the phone. Meet me at the Starbucks on Newberry Street in an hour." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'm going to make your life very difficult." Now that was interesting. "Are you threatening me, Professor?" "I'm offering you a chance to end this before it gets worse." "Worse for who?" "For everyone involved." I thought about it for a moment. "Fine, 1 hour, but this better be good." The Starbucks was crowded with college students and young professionals. I spotted Mark immediately. He was sitting in the corner, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. I bought a coffee and sat down across from him. "You look like hell," I said. "Thanks to you." He leaned forward, his voice low and angry. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My wife has filed for divorce. The university is conducting a formal investigation. I'll probably lose tenure." "Good." "And Julia's career is ruined before it even started. She'll never practice law in this city." "Also good." "You're destroying innocent people out of spite." I laughed. "Innocent? You've been screwing my wife for 8 months. You helped her plan to humiliate me and leave me. How exactly are you innocent?" "What Julia and I have is real. We love each other." "Then you should have waited until she was divorced to act on it." "It's not that simple. These things happen gradually. We tried to fight it, but you didn't try very hard." He was quiet for a moment, staring into his coffee cup. "What do you want?" "What do you mean?" "To make this stop, what do you want? Money? A public apology? What?" "I want you to understand something, Mark. This isn't a negotiation. This isn't something you can fix by throwing money at it or making a deal. You and Julia made choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. Be reasonable. We're all adults here." "Are we?" "Because adults don't have affairs with married women. Adults don't help plan elaborate schemes to humiliate someone's spouse. Adults take responsibility for their actions." I stood up to leave, but Mark grabbed my arm. "Sit down. We're not finished." "Yes, we are." I said sit down. His grip tightened on my arm. Now, Mark Stenner was a soft academic who probably hadn't been in a physical confrontation since middle school. I, on the other hand, had spent 8 years in the Army and 6 months in Middle East. The difference in our capabilities was significant. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. "Let go of me." Something in my voice must have gotten through to him, because he released my arm immediately. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is." I walked out of the Starbucks and headed back to my car, but as I was unlocking the door, I noticed Mark following me. He was about half a block behind, trying to look casual, but obviously tailing me. Fine. If he wanted to play games, I could play games. I led him on a 20-minute walk through downtown Boston, doubling back on myself, cutting through buildings, taking random turns. By the time I was done, Mark was breathing hard and looking frustrated. Finally, I ducked into the lobby of a high-rise office building and took the elevator to the 15th floor. Mark followed me up, but when the elevator doors opened, I was waiting for him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I asked. "I want to know where you live. I want to know where you work. I want to know everything about you." "Why?" "Because you're not going to destroy my life without consequences." I stepped closer to him, and he backed up against the elevator wall. "Mark, let me explain something to you. I know where you live. I know where you work. I know your wife's name, your kids' names, your social security number, and your credit score. I know about your gambling problem and the $20,000 you owe to a bookie in Southie." His face went white. "How do you know about that?" "Because I'm very good at finding information. It's what I do for a living. So if you're thinking about threatening me or my family or my job, you should know that I have enough dirt on you to bury you 10 times over." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of his house with his wife's car in the driveway and his kids' bikes on the lawn. "Am I?" The elevator doors opened and Mark stumbled out, his face pale and sweaty. "Stay away from me, Mark. Stay away from my apartment, my job, and my friends. Because if I see you again, I'm going to assume you're a threat, and I'm going to respond accordingly." The doors closed, and I rode the elevator back down to the lobby, feeling better than I had in days. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered by a nervous-looking process server who clearly didn't want to be there. I signed for them with a smile and a $20 tip. Julia was asking for half of everything: the apartment, the car, the savings account, even my army pension. She was also asking for alimony, claiming she'd sacrificed her earning potential to support our marriage. The irony was breathtaking. I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Catherine Mills, who specialized in men's rights cases. "They're asking for a lot," she said after reviewing the papers. "But given the evidence you've provided about the affair, we should be able to fight most of these claims." "I don't want to fight them." "What?" "I want to give her everything she's asking for." There was a long pause. "Sam, I don't think you understand. If we agree to these terms, you'll walk away from this marriage with almost nothing." "That's fine." "It's not fine. You're entitled to protect your assets." "Catherine, trust me on this. Give her what she wants." "Why?" "Because I have a plan." What Julia didn't know was that I'd been moving money around for months, ever since I'd first suspected something was wrong with our marriage. The savings account she was claiming, it had about $300 in it. The investment portfolio she thought existed, it never had. The apartment she wanted half of, it was mortgaged to the hilt and worth less than what I owed on it. Julia was about to win a Pyrrhic victory, and she didn't even know it. But first, I had some other business to take care of. I drove over to Mark Stenner's house in Cambridge, a nice colonial in a quiet neighborhood where professors and doctors lived. His wife Elise was in the front yard, pulling weeds from her flower garden while their 2 kids played on a swing set. I parked across the street and walked over. "Mrs. Stenner?" She looked up, shading her eyes against the sun. "Yes?" "My name is Sam Callahan. I think we need to talk." Her face hardened immediately. "You're Julia's husband. I am, or was. We're getting divorced." "Good for you." She went back to her weeding, but I could tell she was listening. "I wanted to apologize for what my wife and your husband did to both of us." "It's not your fault." "No, but I feel responsible anyway. If I'd been a better husband, maybe Julia wouldn't have gone looking elsewhere." Elise looked up at me again, this time with something like sympathy. "That's not how affairs work. Trust me, I've been thinking about this for weeks. Mark made a choice. Julia made a choice. You and I were just collateral damage. Still, I'm sorry." "Thank you. That means something." I sat down on her front steps, uninvited but not unwelcome. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you going to take him back?" She laughed bitterly. "Are you going to take her back?" "Not a chance." "Then you have your answer." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching her kids play. They were maybe 8 and 10, old enough to know something was wrong, but too young to understand what. "What are you going to do now?" I asked. "Start over, I guess. I'm a nurse, so I can support myself and the kids. Mark will have to pay child support, assuming he still has a job after all this." "He might not. The university is taking this pretty seriously." "Good. Maybe the next married student will think twice before getting involved with a professor." I stood up to leave, but Elise called after me. "Sam?" "Yeah? Whatever you're planning to do to them, make it count." I smiled. "I intend to." That evening, I got a call from Priya. She sounded upset. "Sam, I need to tell you something about Julia." "What about her?" "She's been staying with me since the restraining order, and she's not doing well." "Define not doing well." "She's drinking heavily, she's not eating, she spends all day on the couch watching TV and crying." "That's unfortunate." "Sam, I'm worried about her, really worried. She talked about hurting herself yesterday." That got my attention. "What exactly did she say?" "She said maybe everyone would be better off if she just disappeared. She said she'd ruined everything and there was no way to fix it." I was quiet for a moment, thinking, Priya, is she seeing a therapist? I suggested it, but she won't go. She says she can't afford it. What about her parents? They're not speaking to her. They're furious about the scandal. Her father says she's brought shame on the family name. And Mark? He won't return her calls. I think he's trying to save his own career. So Julia was completely alone, with no job, no money, no family support, and no future prospects. Part of me felt satisfied by that, but part of me was genuinely concerned. Priya, if you think she's a danger to herself, you need to call someone, a crisis hotline or her doctor or even the police. I don't want to overreact. It's better to overreact than to underreact. Trust me. Will you talk to her? She still loves you, Sam. I know she does. No, she doesn't. She loves the idea of me as a safety net. There's a difference. Please, just 5 minutes. Priya, I can't. The restraining order works both ways. If I contact her, I could be arrested. Then what am I supposed to do? Be her friend, get her professional help, but don't expect me to save her. I'm done being Julia's rescue plan. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment thinking about what Priya had told me. Was I pushing Julia too hard? Was I responsible if she hurt herself? Then I remembered that night at the Beacon Grill. I remembered her laughing at me, humiliating me in front of a room full of people. I remembered the emails with Mark, the plans to divorce me, the casual cruelty of her betrayal. No, I wasn't responsible for Julia's choices. She'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. But I was almost done with my revenge. Just a few more moves, and the game would be over. The next morning, I called Boston University's alumni office. Hi, this is Sam Callahan. I'm calling about the Julia Callahan Scholarship Fund. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't show any scholarship fund under that name. That's because I'm calling to establish one. I'd like to donate $50,000 to create a scholarship for female law students who demonstrate academic excellence and ethical behavior. That's very generous, Mr. Callahan. What would you like the criteria to be? The recipient must maintain a 3.5 GPA, have no disciplinary actions on their record, and write an essay about the importance of integrity in the legal profession. And you'd like to name it after Julia Callahan? Actually, I'd like to name it the Julia Callahan Memorial Scholarship for Ethical Excellence. Memorial? Has Miss Callahan passed away? No, but her legal career has. There was an uncomfortable silence. I'll need to speak with my supervisor about the naming convention, the woman said finally. Of course, take your time. I hung up and smiled. Julia would hear about the scholarship eventually, and when she did, she'd understand the message. Her name would be associated with ethical behavior that she'd never demonstrated herself. But I still had one more card to play. That afternoon, I drove to the offices of Whitmore, Stenner, and Associates. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I walked past her and straight to David Whitmore's corner office. Mr. Whitmore, I'm Sam Callahan. We spoke on the phone last week. He looked up from his desk, clearly annoyed by the interruption. Mr. Callahan, you can't just walk into my office unannounced. I apologize for that, but I have something I think you'll want to see. I handed him a manila folder containing printed copies of all the emails between Julia and Mark, along with a timeline of their affair and documentation of Mark's gambling debts. What is this? Evidence that your partner, Mark Stenner, has been compromised. The affair with Julia is just the tip of the iceberg. He owes money to some very dangerous people, which makes him a security risk for your firm. Whitmore flipped through the documents, his expression growing darker with each page. Where did you get this information? Does it matter? What matters is that it's accurate and verifiable. He closed the folder and looked at me with something like respect. What do you want from me? Nothing. I just thought you should know what kind of people you're dealing with. And Julia Callahan, what about her? Are you trying to destroy her career permanently? I thought about that for a moment. Mr. Whitmore, Julia destroyed her own career when she decided to have an affair with her professor and then tried to humiliate her husband in public. I'm just making sure the consequences stick. I see. She's a brilliant lawyer. I'll give her that. But she has no integrity, no loyalty, and no respect for the people who have helped her. Do you really want someone like that representing your clients? He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. No, he said finally. I don't. Then we understand each other. I left his office feeling like I'd just won a chess match. Julia's job offer was definitely gone now, and Mark's partnership was probably in jeopardy too. But I still wasn't finished. That evening, I called Julia's father. William, this is Sam. Sam! His voice was cold as ice. I suppose you're calling to gloat? Actually, I'm calling to make you an offer. What kind of offer? I'll pay for Julia's diploma myself. $15,000 transferred directly to the university. There was a long pause. What's the catch? No catch. I'll pay the money. Julia gets her diploma, and she can start rebuilding her career. Why would you do that? Because despite everything that's happened, I don't want to see her destroy herself completely. That's surprisingly generous of you. There's just one condition. I knew there was a catch. You have to call her and apologize for cutting her off. You have to tell her that you were wrong to abandon her when she needed you most. Absolutely not. then she doesn't get the money. Sam, you don't understand. Julia has brought shame on our family. The scandal has been in all the papers. My friends at the country club are asking questions. Your daughter made a mistake, a big one, but she's still your daughter. She's an adult. She made her choices. So did you. You chose your reputation over your child. That's not fair. Isn't it? When she was humiliating me at dinner that night, you laughed. You encouraged her. You made it clear that you thought I was beneath your family. But now that she's the one being humiliated, suddenly you care about dignity and respect. William was quiet for a long moment. The offer stands for 24 hours, I said. After that, Julia's on her own. I hung up before he could respond. 23 hours later, my phone rang. It was Julia, and she was crying. Sam, my dad just called. He apologized for everything. He said he was wrong to cut me off, and he's going to help me get back on my feet. That's good, Julia. He said you offered to pay for my diploma. Is that true? It is. Why? After everything I did to you, why would you help me? I thought about how to answer that. The truth was complicated. Part of me still cared about her, despite everything. Part of me was tired of carrying around so much anger. And part of me knew that the most devastating revenge would be to show her the kind of grace and forgiveness that she'd never shown me. Because that's what people do when they love someone, I said finally. She cried harder at that. I'm so sorry, Sam. I'm so sorry. I know you are. Is there any chance? Could we maybe try again? I know I don't deserve it, but no, Julia. We're done. But that doesn't mean I want to see you fail. I don't understand you. I know. That's part of the problem. The next morning, I transferred $15,000 to Boston University. Julia's diploma would be released, and she could start looking for a job again. It wouldn't be easy. The scandal had damaged her reputation, but she was smart and determined. She'd find a way. As for Mark, I heard through the grapevine that he'd been quietly forced to resign from the university. His wife had taken the kids and moved back to her parents' house in Connecticut. His gambling debts had caught up with him, and he'd had to sell his house to pay them off. I felt no sympathy for him whatsoever. 6 months after that disastrous dinner at the Beacon Grill, I was sitting in a different restaurant, a small Italian place in the North End, having dinner with a woman named Sarah. She was a nurse I'd met at a coffee shop, and she had no idea who Julia was or what had happened between us. So, you're divorced? She asked, twirling pasta around her fork. Officially as of last month, I said. It was complicated. Most divorces are. Do you want to talk about it? Not really. I'd rather talk about you. She smiled at that. Sarah had a great smile, genuine and warm, nothing like Julia's practiced perfection. We were just finishing dessert when my phone buzzed with a text message. I almost ignored it, but something made me check. It was from Priya. Turn on Channel 5, now. I excused myself and stepped outside to call her. What's going on? Just watched the news. Julia's on TV. I found a sports bar down the street and asked the bartender to change the channel. Sure enough, there was Julia on the screen, standing outside the Suffolk County Courthouse with a microphone in her face. Miss Callahan, the reporter was saying, you've filed a lawsuit against your former law school professor, Mark Stenner, claiming he manipulated you into an affair that destroyed your marriage and your career. Can you tell us about that? Julia looked different than she had 6 months ago. Thinner, older, harder around the edges, but her voice was steady as she spoke. Professor Stenner misused his position of authority to manipulate a vulnerable student, me, into an inappropriate relationship. He promised me career opportunities in exchange for sexual favors, and when the affair was exposed, he abandoned me to save his own reputation. Are you seeking monetary damages? I'm seeking justice. What Professor Stenner did was wrong, and he needs to be held accountable. The reporter turned to the camera. Mark Stenner's attorney had no comment on the lawsuit, but sources close to the case say Stenner plans to fight the allegations vigorously. We'll continue to follow this story as it develops. I walked back to the Italian restaurant in a daze. Sarah was waiting for me, looking concerned. Is everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. I sat back down and tried to focus on our conversation, but my mind was spinning. Julia was suing Mark. She was claiming to be the sufferer in their affair, rewriting history to make herself look innocent. It was brilliant, actually, and completely dishonest. Sam? Sarah was looking at me with concern. You seem distracted. I'm sorry. Something just came up with my ex-wife. She's a complicated person. Do you need to go? I looked at Sarah's kind face and made a decision. No, whatever drama Julia's creating now, it's not my problem anymore. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Julia had dragged my name into this mess. If she was claiming to be an innocent sufferer, what did that make me? The cruel husband who abandoned his wife in her time of need? I managed to get through the rest of dinner, but my heart wasn't in it. Sarah was lovely, but I couldn't stop thinking about Julia's lawsuit and what it meant. When I got home, there were 17 missed calls on my phone. Reporters mostly, but also some of Julia's old friends and even my own lawyer. I called Catherine Mills first. Sam, thank God. Have you seen the news? I saw it. What does this mean for me? Probably nothing directly, but Julia's painting herself as a sufferer now, which means you might be cast as the villain who abandoned her. That's not what happened. I know that, and you know that, but the media loves a simple narrative. Innocent woman seduced by powerful professor, then abandoned by heartless husband. So what do? Nothing. Don't talk to reporters. Don't respond to the lawsuit. Don't get involved at all. And if they come after me, then we'll deal with it. But for now, stay quiet and let Julia and Mark destroy each other. That turned out to be good advice, because over the next few weeks, the lawsuit turned into a circus. Mark's lawyer filed a countersuit claiming Julia had initiated the affair and was now trying to extort money from his client. Julia's lawyer responded with even more salacious details about their relationship. The media ate it up. Every day brought new revelations, new accusations, new dirty laundry aired in public. Julia appeared on talk shows, claiming to be a sufferer of sexual maltreatment. Mark gave interviews claiming Julia was a manipulative gold digger. And through it all, I stayed silent. But the silence didn't last long. 3 weeks after the lawsuit was filed, I got a call from Julia herself. Sam, I need to see you. We're not supposed to have contact. The restraining order. I had it lifted. Please, it's important. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a Starbucks in downtown Crossing. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with dark circles under her eyes and a baseball cap pulled low over her face. You look terrible, I said, sitting down across from her. Thanks. You look good. It was true. The past 6 months had been good to me. I'd lost weight, started working out again, and generally felt better than I had in years. What do you want, Julia? I want you to testify for me in the lawsuit. I almost laughed. You want me to what? Testify that Mark manipulated me, that he took advantage of my marriage problems to seduce me. What marriage problems? According to you, I was the problem in our marriage. That's not true. I was confused, and Mark took advantage of that confusion. Julia, I have your emails. I know exactly what happened between you two. You weren't confused or manipulated. You made a choice. People change, Sam. I've learned a lot about myself in the past few months. Have you? Or have you just learned how to play the sufferer when it's convenient? Her face hardened. I am a sufferer. Mark destroyed my career. No, Julia, you destroyed your career. Mark was just the weapon you used to do it. I can't believe you're taking his side. I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just telling the truth. She leaned forward, her eyes desperate. Sam, if I lose this lawsuit, I have nothing. No career, no money, no future. You're the only person who can help me. What about your parents? They're supporting me financially, but they won't get involved in the lawsuit. They think it's too messy. Smart people. Please, Sam. I know I hurt you, but we were married for 3 years. That has to count for something. I looked at her sitting there, begging me to lie for her in court, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sympathy, no love. Just a kind of tired sadness for what we'd both become. Julia, even if I wanted to help you, which I don't, I can't, I won't commit perjury. It wouldn't be perjury, it would just be emphasizing certain aspects of the truth. That's the same thing. No, it's not. Mark did take advantage of our marriage problems. He did manipulate the situation. He took advantage of your willingness to cheat on your husband. There's a difference. She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. I loved you, she said finally. No, you didn't. You loved what I provided for you. Security, support, someone to pay your bills and listen to your problems. But you never loved me. That's not true. Julia, you planned to humiliate me and leave me for another man. You wrote emails about how excited you were to start your new life without me. That's not love. I was confused. Stop, just stop. I stood up to leave. I'm not going to testify for you. I'm not going to help you rewrite history. And I'm not going to pretend that you're anything other than what you are. Which is what? A person who makes choices and then blames other people when those choices have consequences. I left her sitting there and walked out into the Boston afternoon. It was a beautiful day, crisp and clear, with that particular quality of light that made the city look like a postcard. My phone was ringing before I'd gone 2 blocks. Julia, of course. I let it go to voicemail. The message was predictable. Sam, please don't do this. I need you. I've always needed you. Please call me back. I deleted it and kept walking. The lawsuit dragged on for another 2 months, getting uglier and more public with each passing week. Mark's wife filed for divorce and got a restraining order against Julia, claiming maltreatment. Julia's parents tried to distance themselves from the media circus. The law school launched its own investigation into the affair, and through it all, reporters kept trying to get me to comment on the case. I turned them all down. Finally, in late November, the case went to trial. I didn't attend, but I followed the coverage online. Julia took the stand and told her version of events. How Mark had pursued her, manipulated her, promised her career advancement in exchange for sex. Mark's lawyer destroyed her on cross-examination. He presented evidence of Julia's emails, her plans to leave me, her active participation in the affair. He made it clear that Julia had been a willing participant who was now trying to rewrite history for financial gain. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before finding in favor of Mark Stenner. Julia's lawsuit was dismissed, and she was ordered to pay his legal fees. That evening, my phone rang. It was Priya. Sam, I'm worried about Julia. She's not taking the verdict well. What do you mean? She's been drinking since this afternoon. She's talking about how everyone's abandoned her, how no one believes her, how her life is over. Where is she now? At her apartment. I tried to stay with her, but she threw me out. She said she wanted to be alone. I was quiet for a moment, thinking. Julia was clearly at rock bottom. Part of me felt like she deserved to be there, but part of me was genuinely concerned about what she might do. Priya, call her parents or call the police for a wellness check, but don't call me. Sam, she needs you. No, she doesn't. She needs professional help. She needs to take responsibility for her choices, but she doesn't need me. What if she hurts herself? Then that's her choice too. I can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. I hung up and tried to go back to my normal evening routine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was about to happen. At midnight, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Callahan? This is Officer Martinez with the Boston Police. We're at 447 Marlborough Street regarding your wife. My heart stopped. Ex-wife? What happened? She's fine, sir, but she's been arrested for public intoxication and disturbing the peace. She was standing outside Professor Mark Stenner's house, screaming at his windows. The neighbors called it in. I see. She's asking for you to come bail her out. I can't do that, officer. We have a complicated history. She mentioned that, but she doesn't have anyone else to call. What about her parents? She says they won't answer her calls. I thought about it for a moment. Julia was sitting in a jail cell, alone and drunk and desperate. 6 months ago, I would have been there in 20 minutes. Now, officer, I'm sorry, but I can't help her. Try calling her friend Priya Singh. She might be willing to help. Are you sure, sir? She seems pretty upset. I'm sure. I hung up and went to bed, but I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I found out that Julia had spent the night in jail. Priya had eventually bailed her out, but not until she'd sobered up and spent 12 hours thinking about her choices. A week later, I heard that Julia had left Boston. Priya told me she'd moved back in with her parents in Connecticut and was seeing a therapist. She'd given up on practicing law and was working as a paralegal at a small firm. Mark Stenner had also left town. He'd resigned from the university and taken a job at a community college in New Hampshire. His wife had gotten the house and custody of the kids. And me? I was finally free. I kept dating Sarah, and after a few months, I realized I was falling in love with her. Real love, not the complicated, toxic thing I'd had with Julia. Sarah was kind, honest, and genuinely interested in me as a person. She didn't care about my lack of a college degree or my blue-collar job. She liked me for who I was, not what I could provide for her. 1 year after that disastrous dinner at the Beacon Grill, Sarah and I were having dinner at the same Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. She was telling me about her day at the hospital when she stopped mid-sentence. Sam, are you listening to me? Sorry, I was just thinking about something. What? About how different my life is now compared to a year ago. Better different or worse different? Much better. She smiled and reached across the table to take my hand. I'm glad. Sarah, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think I'm a good person? She looked surprised by the question. Of course you are. Why would you ask that? Because I did some things last year that I'm not proud of. I hurt people. I got revenge on people who had hurt me. Do you regret it? I thought about that for a long moment. Did I regret destroying Julia's career? Did I regret exposing Mark's affair? Did I regret any of it? No, I said finally. I don't regret it. They made choices, and I made sure they faced the consequences of those choices. Maybe that makes me a bad person. Or maybe it makes you human. You don't think less of me. Sam, I think you're one of the strongest, most principled people I've ever met. You could have been bitter and angry about what happened to you. Instead, you picked yourself up and built a better life. I was bitter and angry, but you didn't stay that way. That's what matters. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I got a text from an unknown number. Sam, this is Julia. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm doing better. I'm in therapy, I'm sober, and I'm trying to rebuild my life. I know I can never undo the hurt I caused you, but I want you to know that I'm truly sorry. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message for a long time, trying to figure out how I felt about it. A year ago, I would have been angry. 6 months ago, I would have been suspicious. Now I just felt tired. I typed back, I'm glad you're getting help. Take care of yourself. Then I deleted her number and went to bed. 2 years later, Sarah and I got married in a small ceremony in her parents' backyard. It was nothing like the elaborate wedding Julia and I had had, just family and close friends, simple vows and genuine happiness. As I stood at the altar, watching Sarah walk down the aisle in her simple white dress, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The humiliation, the betrayal, the revenge, the forgiveness. All of it had led me here, to this woman, to this life. Julia had been right about one thing at that dinner 2 years ago. I'd been carrying dead weight. But the dead weight wasn't me. It was her, and everything toxic she'd brought into my life. Now I was free of all that, free to love someone who actually loved me back, free to build a life based on honesty and respect instead of manipulation and contempt. As Sarah reached the altar and took my hand, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never again settle for someone who didn't see my worth. I would never again carry someone else's dead weight. The minister began the ceremony, and I focused on Sarah's face, on her genuine smile, on the love in her eyes. This was what a real partnership looked like. This was what I'd been searching for all along. Do you, Sam, take Sarah to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. After the ceremony, as Sarah and I danced to our first song as husband and wife, I caught sight of my phone lighting up with a text message. For just a moment, I wondered if it was Julia, trying to insert herself into my happiness one more time. But I didn't check. Whatever it was, whoever it was, it could wait. This moment belonged to me and Sarah, and no ghost from my past was going to take that away from me. The song ended, and Sarah looked up at me with those kind, honest eyes. What are you thinking about? She asked. Nothing, I said, and for the first time in years, that was actually true. Absolutely nothing. She laughed and kissed me, and I kissed her back, tasting the future on her lips. Julia had been wrong about a lot of things, but she'd been right about one. Independence was everything. The difference was, I'd found my independence not by abandoning the people I loved, but by refusing to be abandoned by them. And that, I realized, made all the difference in the world. As the evening wound down and the last of our guests headed home, Sarah and I sat on her parents' back porch watching the stars come out over the Connecticut countryside. So, she said, curling up against my side, how does it feel to be married again? Different, I said. Better, right. No regrets? About marrying you? Never. About anything? I thought about Julia, about Mark, about the year of revenge and anger and pain, about the choices I'd made and the consequences I'd inflicted. No, I said finally. No regrets. And I meant it. Every betrayal, every humiliation, every moment of pain had led me to this porch, to this woman, to this life. I wouldn't change any of it, because changing it might mean losing what I'd found. Sarah fell asleep against my shoulder as the night grew cooler, and I sat there holding her, watching the stars and thinking about second chances. I'd gotten mine, and this time, I wasn't going to waste it.